Do you like cheap miniatures? Do you like getting new minis whenever you want? Do you wanna avoid a huge pile of shame? Or are you a criminal? No, wait, you wanna get some proxies, right? Right? That's cool. Well, in that case, 3D printing is right for you. Or is it? In this video, we are gonna talk about the main upsides as well as the downsides of 3D printing your miniatures. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the best platform for easy website creation. The big box behind me is a new 3D printer that Frozen sent me to test the limits of the new 8K resolution printers. And the current limits are actually one of the big issues that people might have with 3D printing. The proper technology hasn't been created to print the best details possible without leaving some print lines, at least for the end customer like you and me. And for that reason, some miniature painters still prefer buying kits and sprues instead of getting a 3D printer. But this has been only true until now, because this higher resolution changes everything. Well, hopefully. We'll see. Now, before we actually try to print something and look at the quality that this printer produces, we have to unbox it. Certainly, there is a lot to be said about printing quality, but we will talk about that later. However, the first major upside as opposed to buying miniature kits is that it's way cheaper to 3D print your minis. If I wanna get a model like this one, it can cost in a range of $2 to $4, or even less when you consider just the material. Compare that with this box right here, which costs like $55 and is actually in the same scale. Even when you compare minis like these against a box like this, it should be very obvious that when you consider just the price, 3D printing is far superior option. With that being said, it's worth mentioning the first downside of 3D printing, and that is potentially huge upfront investment. 3D printing gets cheaper and cheaper the more you print, because quite obviously the cost spreads among all your printed minis. However, this Frozen Sonic Mini 8K costs like $600 right now, which definitely isn't cheap. Additionally, you might want to invest into some washing and curing station, so you clean up your models, but you can do it without it. But if you are unsure about 3D printing, there are definitely options for like $200, so you can get your feet wet before going balls deep and getting something like this. But if you are serious about quality, this is actually worth considering, or at least we'll see. Now I want to talk about today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. I knew for a long time that I need to create my own website, but I've been just too busy to do it. Out of all the options out there, I knew that Squarespace would be probably the easiest one, because programming and me, that just doesn't mix. So when Squarespace reached out to me with an offer, that was that last push I needed to start working on it. Using Squarespace, you don't really need any special skills. It's all very simple, everything is customizable, and all the layouts and designs are drag and drop based. For example, if you got your logo, simply drop it right here, and there you go. If you are a commission painter or you just want to share your portfolio on a website, this is one of the easiest options. So if you need an easy website solution, go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and once you are ready to start, go to squarespace.com/zumikito to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. So the second big thing is that 3D printing is easier than you think. Majority of all 3D printers have some sort of starting guide that takes you through your first print. And once you learn how to print something else, clean it up, and cure it, it's all the same. There is a learning curve when it comes to slicing if you don't have pre-supported files, but 90% of all my stuff is pre-supported anyway. I won't go too deep into this topic, but if you wanna see how easy it is, you can watch my video where I am 3D printing on a resin printer for the first time. Now you should know that even though 3D printing is cheaper from money perspective, it takes time. And I don't just mean the printing process itself. No, no, no. But things like slicing, settings adjustment, at least if you don't print at default, and even the cleaning of the resin. For me personally, it's not really a big deal because I streamlined this process, so once I'm done printing, it takes me like 10 to 20 minutes to clean everything up. It is annoying to do this every time, but on the other hand, you are saving time that you would spend getting your minis out of a sprue and assembling them, at least when you print your minis completed. So be prepared that you will spend some time figuring out these processes, but after a few prints, it'll become faster. Perhaps the most important thing for me is that with 3D printer I can print stuff that isn't available anywhere. For example, this Charizard and this Mandalorian bust are both 3D printed from Thingiverse, and I couldn't find similar models anywhere else. These were free to download, and if you wanted to print similar stuff or minis from your favorite shows, sometimes 3D printing is your only option. It's also way easier to produce a printable file over a physical miniature. So there are many companies that are doing just that. Many of these have been also featured on this channel. So for example, Cobra Mode is producing super cute minis for D&D, Loot Studios are producing fantasy and sci-fi models, or one-page rules for wargaming armies. And because it's so much easier to produce a file over a physical model, I think that we will see more and more companies doing just that, and that way you will get more variety and more value out of your printers. There is one downside that is exactly the same problem that people who don't have an airbrush face. It takes space. Personally, I don't think that airbrush compressor takes a lot of space, but that's just me. This printer right here is quite compact, it's pretty quiet as opposed to some of the printers, but you still have to place it somewhere. Also, my old printer really stinks when it prints because of the resin fumes. It's not gonna kill you or anything, but you don't wanna smell it all the time, so it's for the best to leave it in another room that's not occupied. This one actually doesn't stink at all unless I open up the lid, so that's great. Any smell can be also mitigated by using different resin, but it's still perhaps for the best to leave it in another room. So we went through the 3 main upsides and 3 main downsides, but honestly the most important thing for me is quality. You can see that I am still buying miniature kits even though I had a 3D printer since the last year, and one of the main reasons is because I still hate the print lines. This Frozen Sonic Mini 8K is the first consumer-grade 3D printer that is capable of printing at 22 micron XY resolution. That means the precision is fucking insane. The thing has 2 durable rails for steady printing, and apparently the building plate is laser engraved for better grip on your prints. I used the Frozen Aqua Gray 8K resin, which is supposed to be the best for small layers, and I was pleasantly surprised to find out that my first run was successful. I have printed the same model that I already painted because some of you complained about the print lines here, and to really compare the differences, I primed this mini from the front, and this should help us see any imperfections. And holy shit! This is some improvement. For me, the biggest issues were parts of the armor and perhaps the cheeks. But here, you can barely see any print lines and the overall quality is more crisp. And this is even before you start painting the mini, just the primer. So it's safe to assume that it'll be even smoother. So to answer the question, is this at least as good of a quality as plastic or cast minis? Hell yeah, it is! Now, if you asked me 6 months prior to this video, however, my stance could be different. But because of this bad boy right here, I am fairly sure this is the case. Keep in mind that I am upgrading from 51 micron XY resolution, so this increase of quality was to be expected. Anyway, if you are serious about quality of your printed miniatures and you want 8K printer yourself, there is gonna be an affiliate link in the description, so you can support this channel as well. Now that we went through all of that, we can answer 2 big questions. Is there a case for just getting a 3D printer and not buying any new minis whatsoever and just print them? And should you do it? If you have the money for a relatively large upfront investment, you are willing to learn and put a bit of time into cleaning, and you have the space for a 3D printer, I can see how you can manage by just having everything 3D printed. This is especially true if you are more of a painter and less of a gamer, but even so, I know people who print basically everything and they use proxies for their wargames. But should you do it? Well, for me, personally, Probably not. And don't get me wrong, I will absolutely use a lot of 3D printing going forward, and I will perhaps print some bits and proxies and save money by printing 75mm scale minis instead of buying them online, but there is still some stuff that you cannot really print. For example, you can print proxies for Warhammer, but you cannot print Warhammer. And this goes for other miniature games and producers as well. And if you wanna keep them going, you should definitely support them by buying from them. There is an argument that these companies should offer 3D printable files for their customers, since they are using 3D printing technology to some extent themselves. But until that actually happens, and if you like their work, buying from them is the only legal option. But then again, you can 3D print other miniatures. And if you are wondering how hard it is to start 3D printing on your own, you can actually watch this video and there is entire process from start to finish. And see you there!